At a class reunion, the old flame who had abandoned Liam returned. During a game of truth or dare, he chose truth. Someone jokingly asked, "Mr. Thorne, is the one you love here tonight?" He gripped his wine glass, his voice slow. "Yes, but I hadn't gone to the reunion, so the one he loved wasn't me." That night, I tore up the pregnancy test report, my voice serious and gentle. "Liam, let's get a divorce. Congratulations, MS. Croft. You're pregnant." When I heard the news, my first thought was to tell Liam, but on second thought, I decided to give him a surprise tonight. I carefully put away the report and sent him a message. "Liam, come home early tonight. I have something to tell you." I quickly received a reply. "I have a dinner engagement tonight. Don't wait up." I frowned slightly, but in the end, I said nothing, just reminded him, "Okay, be careful on the road. Don't drink too much. You'll get a stomachache." "As you command, my dear wife." His words were playful, a stark contrast to the stern and cold CEO of the Thorne Corporation that the world saw. I couldn't help but smile, the knot in my heart loosening a little. In the evening, worried that he would get drunk, I got up to make some sobering soup. Just then, my phone lit up. It was a message from an unknown number. "Ava, I'm back. Right now. I'm with your husband." The message was signed, Charlotte. Then came a photo. Liam was looking up slightly, his gaze fixed on a woman in the corner, his eyes full of tenderness. My heart skipped a beat. The knife slipped, lightly cutting my finger. A drop of blood fell to the floor. What dinner engagement? So, Charlotte was back. Liam and I were true childhood sweethearts. Our families, our social standing, were all a perfect match. But I wasn't his girlfriend. Charlotte was. In high school, he was a top student, from a good family, and handsome. Countless girls had crushes on him, but he only liked Charlotte. From his public confession on her birthday to his constant favoritism, everyone knew. I watched from the sidelines, secretly envious. But in our freshman year of college, his family's fortunes suddenly turned. His father went bankrupt and committed suicide, and his mother fell ill. At that time, everyone around him left. Charlotte broke up with him and went abroad. He was in a slump for a long time. When I found him, he was being beaten to the ground by debt collectors. I cried and shielded him, giving them all my money. Seeing my pity, the debt collectors left. In the dark alley, only the two of us remained. I carefully helped him up, but he pushed me away, his voice cold. "I don't need your pity." I, for a rare occasion, stood my ground and said, word for word, "Liam, I can help you, I swear." At that time, I just wanted to help him, for no other reason. And I certainly didn't expect anything in return. But he looked at me for a long time that day, then suddenly sneered. "You want to be my sugar mommy?" I was stunned. Before I could answer, he turned and left without a word. But I still helped him. I paid his tuition, lent him money to start a business after graduation, helped him get back on his feet, and personally took care of his hospitalized mother. His attitude towards me gradually softened. And then, he proposed to me. The ceremony was simple, but I was overjoyed. I thought I had finally melted his icy heart, that he had long forgotten Charlotte. But today, on the day I was celebrating my pregnancy, he had lied about a dinner engagement and had gone to his old flame's welcome home party instead. It was laughable. Putting my phone away, I looked out the window and gently pushed it open. A blast of winter wind rushed in. The warm air I exhaled condensed and then dissipated, not lingering for a moment. I suddenly felt that this winter was colder than any before. As I stood at the entrance of the bar's private room, my feet covered in snow, I suddenly stopped. I didn't know why I was here. To catch him in the act. To confront him. But either way, it would be unseemly. Pathetic. Just then, a waiter came out, saw me, and asked if I was lost. I shook my head. After he left, I gently pushed the door open, leaving a small crack. Not large, but just enough for me to see inside. The lights were dim. Liam was leaning back on the sofa, his head tilted up slightly, his hair disheveled, giving him a mature, uninhibited look. He was captivating. Charlotte was sitting not far from him, staring at him intently, but he didn't even look at her, as if he truly didn't care about her. Her eyes quietly reddened, a look of pitiful grievance on her face. a stark contrast to the triumphant air she had when she had sent me the messages. On July 30th, 4 years ago, Liam proposed to you. But you probably don't know that on that day, I married someone else. Ava, do you think he married you because he really likes you? Or despite me? Or maybe he just didn't want to owe you anything? Though it was a question. Her tone was certain. She was confident that he loved her, no matter what. Even now, when he seemed so cold to her, the people around them noticed. Someone with a mischievous streak laughed and asked, Mr. Thorne, are you up for a game of truth or dare? He neither nodded nor shook his head. The next moment, the bottle spun and pointed at him. He glanced at it, his tone cold. Truth. The person laughed, looked at Charlotte, then back at him, and asked, Mr. Thorne, is the one you love here tonight? The room instantly fell silent. After all, everyone knew about the history between him and Charlotte. Back then, he had been so good to her. But when he had fallen on hard times, she had abandoned him without hesitation. If it hadn't been for my unwavering support, my assistance, he would never have become the successful businessman he was today. Who was more important? Who was truly devoted to him? Even a fool could see. And all these years, his love for me was known to all. But Liam hesitated. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. I stood at the door, staring at him, the heart in my chest, which had been beating so wildly, slowly turning to ice. In the room, someone thought he was just finding the question foolish and not deigning to answer. So they laughed and said, What kind of question is that? It's too easy. Mr. Thorne is too lazy to even bother with you. Ava isn't here today. So of course the one he loves isn't here. Hearing this, others started to chime in, listing all the things he had done for me over the years. I loved roses, so he had built me a private rose garden. For my birthday, he would let me choose from priceless jewels. At banquets, he would repeatedly declare his love for me. When he had won a Young Entrepreneur Award, he had made a vow of love to me. There were too many things to count. Someone looked at Charlotte with a sneer. Charlotte, you really were blind back then. If you hadn't left, you might have been Mrs. Thorne now. Yeah, you must be regretting it now that you've abandoned him. Her face was as white as a sheet, her knuckles white as she gripped her wine glass, looking fragile and on the verge of collapse. But I noticed that his jaw was clenched, and he was rubbing his thumb restlessly, a subconscious habit of his when facing a difficult decision. He was seriously thinking. A moment later, just as she was about to flee from the taunts, he took a large gulp of his drink and said, She is. Everyone was stunned. Someone reminded him, Mr. Thorne, you must be drunk. Your wife isn't here tonight. But he put down his glass and repeated, The one I love is here. The final nail in the coffin. I wasn't there, but Charlotte was. So it was obvious who he loved. The room was silent, but Charlotte was ecstatic. Liam, I knew you still loved me. I was right to come back for you. He glanced at the hand that was grabbing his sleeve, a flicker of something in his eyes, but he didn't pull away. The next second, he casually looked away. He tilted his head slightly, and then, he saw me, standing at the door. His expression instantly froze. Behind him, Charlotte's eyes held a hint of triumph, as if to say, See, even after all this time, his fastidiousness still doesn't apply to me. She had always been his exception. Ava, don't mind him. Liam was probably just drunk when he said he loved me. A clumsy trick, but disgusting enough. I frowned slightly and looked at her. She, as if to provoke me, tried to take his hand, but the next second, he shook her off and walked towards me. Ava, it's so cold. Why aren't you resting at home? You've always found bars so noisy. His voice was gentle, his words considerate, as if nothing had happened. I looked up at him, my smile light, but I avoided the hand he reached out to me. It is quite cold today. The weather was indeed cold, and so was my heart. Back home, the sobering soup on the table was still steaming. Wisps of steam curled up into the air and then dissipated, as if they had never been there. I lifted the lid, quietly ladled a bowl of soup, and placed it in front of him. As I was about to pull my hand back, he grabbed it. He opened his mouth. Ava, about earlier. He wanted to explain what he had said. He knew I had heard, but I waited for a moment, and the rest of his sentence never came. His face grew more and more stiff. I smiled and helped him finish his explanation. You've had a little to drink. You're bound to say the wrong thing. I understand. He looked at my face and saw that I really didn't care. He frowned slightly, but still nodded. He drank his soup quietly. In the dim yellow light, the sharp lines of his face were softened. He was different from the proud young master of high school, and different from the reserved and low-key Liam of college. Now, after all the pain, he had been reborn, dazzling. And on this path, I had always been there. When the Thorn Corporation was just starting, they couldn't even make payroll. I had taken out my life savings, given up my favorite hobby of painting, and worked as a bookkeeper, a clerk, his most capable assistant. I had accompanied him step by step as the Thorn Corporation grew from a small workshop of less than 10 people to the large corporation of hundreds and thousands it was today. It had been 10 years. I've always been curious, I said, looking at him. Liam, why did you marry me? Clink. The spoon hit the side of the bowl. He looked up at me, his smile gentle. Because you're well behaved, beautiful, and outstanding. Very specific, very comprehensive. I nodded in agreement, then said again in a gentle voice. Then, why did you like Charlotte? This was the first time I had mentioned her. Seriously. He saw my attitude and gave a helpless laugh, as if he couldn't do anything about me. Because. But he got stuck. He frowned slightly, a thoughtful look in his eyes. But the answer never came. I watched him until my eyes started to ache. Then I blinked quickly and laughed, changing the subject. Liam, do you love me now? He answered without hesitation. Of course I love you. I looked at him in silence. He raised his hands and pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly, as if to merge me into his body, never to be separated. Ava, I love you. I will never say those things again. I'm sorry. I just didn't want Charlotte to be embarrassed because of me, so I said that. I know it hurt you. It was my fault. His attitude was sincere, his words gentle. My fingertips trembled slightly. I nodded, but he didn't know that the heart in my chest, which had beaten for him countless times, seemed to be tired. It was beating very slowly, very lightly, just as he also didn't know that you can't really explain why you love someone. Just as he couldn't say what he liked about Charlotte, because he liked everything about her. So how could he explain it? If you can explain it, is it really love? But I didn't want to tell him. I was too tired. The next morning, I told him I was going to my mother's house. He said he would go with me, but at the appointed time, he never came. I drove to my parents' house alone. My mother was surprised to see me alone. Where's Liam? I'm not good at lying, so I said nothing. My mother took the hint and started talking about other things. My parents had an arranged marriage, but their relationship had been as good as ever for decades. My mother was so spoiled that her every smile was full of happiness. In comparison, I looked a little haggard. I suddenly remembered that many years ago, my mother had tried to stop me from being with him, although she had quickly given in to my wishes. I had once thought it was because our family backgrounds didn't match, but now, I felt that she wasn't so superficial. So I asked her, Mom, why didn't you want me to be with Liam back then? She looked at me for a long time, as if she could see something, and said gently, because you two are too alike, both stubborn. Both unwilling to turn back until you've hit a wall. Was that so? I thought about it. I had no answer. As I was leaving, my mother gently stroked my face, a hint of sadness in her eyes. Ava, whatever you decide, follow your heart. Don't do anything you'll regret. But what would I regret? Again, no answer. When I got home, he still hadn't returned. I opened my phone to a flood of apologetic and explanatory messages from him. I didn't reply to a single one. Then I drove to his office. The receptionist knew me and was about to call him, but I stopped her. She looked at me, hesitating, and just as I was about to get on the elevator, she suddenly said, Madam, you should keep a close eye on the president. I was stunned. Before I could understand the hidden meaning of her words, the elevator doors had closed, but I soon understood. I was about to push open the door to his office when I heard a familiar sob. Liam. I really don't know what to do. I was forced to leave back then. I've never forgotten you all these years. I know you love me too. Right. My hand froze. It was Charlotte. She was standing in front of him, in a pink dress, with dark hair and fair skin. Her eyes red, looking pitiful and lovely. But he didn't look at her. I'm married now. Whatever happens to you has nothing to do with me. Cold, harsh, heartless. She seemed to be hurt by his coldness. Her face turned pale, and she gave a bitter laugh. I know. I'd just like you. I won't destroy your relationship with Ava. She's a rich heiress. I have nothing now. How could I be worthy of you? But besides you, where else can I go? If I go home, I'll be forced to marry that old man. I might as well be dead. She clutched her heart, her sobs so tragic it seemed she might faint at any moment. But he only glanced at her before lowering his head to his documents. He said nothing. If it weren't for the slight tremor in his fingertips, or the wrinkles on the document from his tight grip, I would have believed he was truly unmoved. But I knew him too well. So, I knew that at this moment, he was making a choice between his marriage and Charlotte. But the answer was obvious. He walked towards her, and in her expectant gaze, he pulled her into his arms. His voice was low. Charlotte, don't be afraid. I'm here. No one can force you. Her eyes sparkled with tears of joy. The gray-toned office seemed to be tinged with a hint of ambiguity from their embrace. I stood outside the door, watching them hug, kiss, and pour out their years of longing for each other. I didn't interrupt, didn't make a sound, until they walked out of the office, hand in hand. And then they saw me. His expression instantly changed. He opened his mouth but could only manage a few words. Ava, how long have you been here? I looked at him and gave a light laugh. A long time. So long that looking at this man I had loved for so many years, I suddenly felt as if I were looking at a stranger. So long that the heart that had beaten for him countless times could no longer find any love. Not a single trace. Ava, let's go home. I cut off his explanation and repeated with a smile. Liam, let's go home. I think I should make a choice. Back home. Neither of us spoke. The room was silent. I turned on the lights. The warm yellow light filled the room, falling on him, as if plating him in gold. He sat with his head bowed, his hands clasped, not saying a word. I suddenly remembered 4 years ago, the day he had proposed to me. He had also been sitting opposite me like this, looking at me seriously, and had called my name softly. Ava. I was stunned. He had laughed softly, his eyes crinkling, and had then asked me seriously, will you marry me? At that moment, my mind had gone blank. It wasn't until he had laughed out loud that I had snapped back to my senses and had nodded without hesitation. I had always considered that day the happiest of my life, but Charlotte had shattered my beautiful dream. At this moment, I looked at the man before me and asked softly, Liam, do you still remember what you said when you proposed to me? He looked up at me, his hands unconsciously clenched. You said that when two people are together, they should never betray each other, never be separated. I paused, my voice hoarse when I spoke again. But you cheated. I had seen it with my own eyes. He explained eagerly. Ava, my mind was a mess just now. I really don't like Charlotte. I cut him off. But you couldn't let go. You couldn't let go of your unrequited love for her in your youth. You couldn't let go of your wasted youth. So, you never forgot her. Even though I was the one by his side all these years, the one who had helped him get back on his feet. Even though he had constantly shown his love for me, doing one sensational thing after another. In the past, I had been happy about it, but now that I think about it, he had always been a low-key person. Yet he was so high profile only when it came to showing his love for me. Why? Did he really love me? Or was he using me to spite Charlotte, who was far away? I think it was the latter. He had never loved me, yet he had used me time and time again. From the very beginning, I had loved the wrong person. Thinking of this, my heart felt as if it were being roasted by fire, cut by a knife, bloody and raw, excruciatingly painful. He was silent for a long time, so long that I thought he would never speak again. He suddenly said, Ava, I really won't see her again. Can you give me another chance? I gave you one. I wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes, my voice very soft. The day you said you loved her. His expression froze. He probably thought that because I had acted so calm and collected that day, I didn't care. But that wasn't true. I had been very sad that day. He said he had done it to save her from embarrassment. But I knew him too well, so I knew he was lying. On the same day, he had lied to me twice for her. It was laughable. To be honest, before that day, I had thought my love for him was as solid as a rock, that no one could destroy it. But after that day, I found I was wrong. It turned out my love was very fragile. So fragile that a single look, a single word could easily destroy it. But I was unwilling to let go. I had been with him every step of the way. I had suffered a lot, shed tears and sweat. Why should I just hand him over to someone else? So, I had self-righteously given him a chance. I had told myself that if they had no more contact, I could pretend today had never happened. But I was wrong. Just as I could never get over his words that day, he could never get over Charlotte. I always said he was just being resentful about her. But wasn't I the same? That's why I had clung to a false marriage, a disloyal husband, refusing to let go. But now that I think about it, what was the point? All I got was endless self-consumption and self-harm. At this moment, I suddenly admitted defeat. I had loved the wrong person. I accepted it. Looking at the man before me, I took off the diamond ring from my finger and said seriously and gently, Liam, actually, if you had fallen for someone else, whether it was Charlotte or some other girl, I could have understood. But you should have been honest with me, not lied to me time and time again. I am your wife, the one who will be with you for decades. Even if you don't love me, you should respect me. Or, did watching me be played for a fool give you a special sense of satisfaction? He looked at me eagerly, wanting to take my hand. Ava. No. I never wanted to lie to you. I avoided him. He had never wanted to lie to me, but he had lied to me, time and time again. I could hardly tell what was real and what was fake anymore. I was tired. I didn't want to bother trying to figure it out anymore. I looked into his eyes and said, word for word, Liam, let's get a divorce. I'm tired. I don't want you anymore. As for the child, I gently stroked my still, flat belly and sighed softly. He agreed to the divorce. Because that night, my attitude had been so firm. Liam, if you don't agree, I will sue you. His company was about to go public. At this critical juncture, he would not allow such a thing to happen, even if he was a million times unwilling. He moved out of the house. I blocked all his contact information, as if by doing so, he would disappear from my life. But every night at midnight, I would look out the window and see his car and the faint glow of a cigarette inside. He was smoking in the car. I had thought he had quit long ago. Apparently not. He had just hidden it, like his love and resentment for Charlotte. And I contacted my doctor. Arrange for the surgery tomorrow. This child, not expected in love, I did not want. Click. The operating room light came on. I had been given an anesthetic and should have been drowsy, but I could still hear some voices. It's a little girl. Yes. So pitiful. She was already formed. I heard MS. Croft had a miscarriage once before. If she's had this one, it'll be difficult for her to get pregnant again. Yes. A miscarriage. I remember when the Thorn Corporation was just starting out. It was the most difficult time. We couldn't get any investment, and I was unwilling to let my parents look down on him. So I didn't ask for their help. The company was just the two of us. We sought investment, looked for projects. We were so busy we were in a daze. So neither of us noticed that a small life had quietly come into this world. Until I fainted from low blood sugar and fell down the stairs. The baby was gone. My heart was broken. He held me tight, crying for the first time, saying he was sorry, that he would be good to me. I believed him. That day, the two of us, having lost our most precious treasure, held each other tightly, seeking warmth from each other. At that moment, I truly believed we would be together forever. Until Charlotte returned. Until now, as I lay on the operating table, about to remove our second child. Liar. Liam, you've lied to me so cruelly. You never liked me, did you? But thankfully, now, I don't like you either. Liam. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was the nurse's gentle smile. MS. Croft. How are you feeling? Pretty good. I nodded, my gaze falling on the window. I suddenly noticed that the tree outside had quietly sprouted a few tender buds. They were so delicate. They looked fragile, but they were growing tenaciously in the cold wind. So, spring was coming. How wonderful. This winter, which had been colder than any before, was finally over. It wasn't cold anymore. I didn't tell anyone about the abortion. Not even my parents knew. I had loved the wrong person. I would bear the consequences myself. Why add to others' sorrow? The lawyer I hired was famous in the industry. In less than a month, The divorce papers were in my hands. All assets were split 70-30. I got 70. He got 30. The lawyer told me. I had originally fought for a 60-40 split. But Mr. Thorne voluntarily added to the settlement. Perhaps out of guilt. But I would not refuse. Signing my name. I looked at the man sitting opposite me for the first time. In just half a month. He looked haggard. Even his suit was disheveled. Not at all in keeping with his usual image. Liam. I called his name. He looked up at me, his eyes dark with fatigue, with heavy dark circles. He looked pitiful, as if he were the one who had been betrayed, not me. Do you know what the good news I wanted to tell you that day was? I looked back at him and smiled slightly. That day, I found out I was pregnant. I thought you had the right to know that a child of ours once existed. I placed an ultrasound picture and a prenatal check up form in front of him. A small, curled up shadow was faintly visible. That was the child I had been waiting for so long. Now, it was gone. Killed by my own hand. At this moment, I belatedly felt an uncontrollable pain spreading in my chest. Unspeakable. Unforgettable. Liam. It was you who gave him up. His breath hitched. He stared at the 2 pieces of paper in front of him. They were so light, yet so heavy. He looked at them over and over again. His eyes filled with a brokenness I had never seen before. When he spoke again, his voice was extremely hoarse. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He was questioning me. It was laughable. Because. I thought for a moment, my smile gradually disappearing. Because you're not worthy. Liam. I've been with you for so long. Yet you could hurt me again and again for someone who had once abandoned you. Hurt you. A child you didn't even know. Do you really care? So, stop with the self-pity. You don't deserve to be loved. Never. I took the agreement and turned to leave. I could faintly hear a roar from behind me. Maybe it was him. Maybe not. But I didn't care anymore. News of our divorce quickly spread. The division of assets was a hot topic. 70-30. Everyone said he was a good man. And to my surprise, Charlotte actually asked to meet with me. In the coffee shop. She stared at me with a hostile expression and immediately questioned me. Ava, don't you think you're being too greedy? I raised an eyebrow at her. Liam's company is about to go public. You're taking so much of his assets now. How is he going to go public? Aren't you just trying to ruin him? I took a sip of my coffee. My tone light. Yes. I am trying to ruin him. I knew this was a critical time for him. And I knew that the assets he had given me were enough to derail all his plans. But so what? I laughed softly. A person who betrayed me and hurt me. Does he deserve a happy ending? This is what I deserved. I admit I loved the wrong person. I will bear the consequences myself. He cheated during our marriage. He must also bear the consequences. That's only fair. She looked at me as if she were seeing me for the first time. Her eyes wide. Ava, you're so vicious. Anyone in this world can judge me. But you, Charlotte, are not worthy. I looked at the woman who was acting as if she were his wife. My smile gradually fading, leaving only a cold expression. You are just a homewrecker, trying to interfere in someone else's marriage. Hearing this, she was not ashamed. Instead, she smiled triumphantly. Ava, you've been married to him for so many years, and you still can't hold on to his heart. Isn't that because you're useless? How can you blame me? Before she could finish, I slapped her across the face. Slap. The sound was crisp. She was stunned. Ava. You. I grabbed her chin and stared into her eyes. Charlotte. I don't blame you. But you will not be with him either. I am not a person who can be bullied. I have never been easy to provoke. Otherwise, I would not have been able to fight my way up with him from the bloody world of business. I had restrained my temper and been his support. Not because I was weak and easy to bully, but because I liked him. She had intended to use him to hurt me, thinking I would be heartbroken, leave in sorrow, and never recover, so she could easily take my place. But unfortunately for her, she had always misjudged me. I, Ava Croft, am not a fragile little woman who can be broken by love. The hurt she had inflicted on me, I could only return 1,000 times over. This was the ending I had chosen for her. After returning to the country, she had entered the entertainment industry. With his resources, she quickly gained some fame. But during a scheduled live broadcast, a woman suddenly burst into the studio and started a fight with her. You bitch. I finally found you. You seduced my husband abroad, made him divorce me, and took all our assets back to the country. Did you really think you were clean? That no one knew about your dirty deeds? And now you're doing it again. Seducing the CEO of the Thorn Corporation to divorce his wife. Charlotte, aren't you disgusting? A few short sentences. A huge amount of information. Everyone was shocked. She struggled frantically, screaming at the top of her lungs. Turn off the live stream. The crew finally reacted and pulled the plug. But it was too late. Everyone had seen it clearly, heard it clearly. In this age of the internet, everything she had done abroad was dug up. A major online influencer even provided concrete evidence. In the photo, she was lying in bed, scantily clad, sexy, and a bloated old man was standing beside her, looking at him with obsession. It was the husband of the woman who had burst into the studio, and also her ex-husband. This news caused a sensation online. Charlotte was finished. Her reputation was ruined, and she was being sued by the woman to get back the assets she deserved. At this time, everyone was very interested in his attitude. Within half an hour, the Thorn Corporation had issued a statement, clarifying the rumors of an affair with her. She even went to the gate of the Thorn Corporation and was photographed. She cried and threw herself at him, but was violently thrown to the ground by a bodyguard. Wretched and pitiful. But he didn't even glance at her and walked straight ahead. When asked by reporters, his handsome face was grim. The innocent are innocent. My relationship with Miss Chen is limited to that of classmates, and nothing more. Calm, dignified, and her, on the ground, covered in dirt. They were like two different worlds. She cried heartbrokenly. I watched the video with a cold eye, my thoughts in a turmoil. Finally sighing, Liam was, and always had been, a businessman. Cold, blooded, ruthless. When faced with a disadvantage, he would discard it without hesitation. His supposed unrequited love for her was nothing in the face of huge profits. She had misjudged him. To end up like this was her own doing. His company ultimately did not go public. Insufficient funds. I had guessed as much, but I had no time to pay attention. I had officially taken over my father's position and become the president of the Croft Corporation. From Mrs. Thorn to MS. Croft. The next time I saw him was at a friend's child's 100-day celebration. The baby was chubby and adorable. I took the child in my arms. It was so soft, with a milky scent. For some reason, I thought of my two unborn children. If they had been born, they would be this big now, and they would have sweetly called me Mommy. Thinking of this, my heart felt as if it were being twisted by a knife. The pain unbearable. Just then, my friend patted me. Liam is here. I looked up and saw him standing not far away, his gaze fixed on me. My friend sighed. He's in a bad way. I hear Charlotte is clinging to him. Even secretly took photos and videos of them kissing, trying to force him to take responsibility, or she'll expose his affair. His company's IPO failed a while ago. He needs investment to replenish his funds now. A scandal is the last thing he needs. They still haven't come to an agreement, but he deserves it. You helped him for so long, and he still wasn't satisfied. The last sentence was filled with schadenfreude and sarcasm. I gave a slight smile and left the main hall for the garden. He followed me out. Ava. Long time no see. I turned to him. Mr. Thorn. My tone was distant. He gave a bitter smile and suddenly said, Ava, today is my birthday. Can you take a walk with me? I was stunned. I frowned slightly, wanting to refuse, but looking at his stubborn gaze, I finally nodded. We left the banquet hall. He took me to a small alley. It was dark inside, and the wind carried a damp smell. I stopped. He took a few steps forward and said softly, Do you still remember this place? I pressed my lips together and didn't answer. I was being beaten to the ground by debt collectors. At that time, I even wanted to kill them. But I couldn't. I could only take the beating. And then, you appeared. You cried and threw yourself on top of me. At that time, I just thought you were pitying me. But a long time later, I realized you were heartbroken for me. He gave a bitter smile, his voice tinged with regret. You were good to me. You helped me, not out of pity, but because you liked me. I knew you liked me. My first reaction was relief, because if you liked me, you would never leave me. I had lost too much in my life. I didn't want to lose you. I looked at him in silence. A small streetlight at the entrance of the alley suddenly lit up. The light was dim, falling on his face, making his features sharp. His eyes. He looked back at me. You once asked me why I proposed to you. In the past, I thought it was to spite Charlotte. But after the divorce, I realized that I married you because I wanted to see you happy. A long time ago, I regretted it. I should have loved you properly. I shouldn't have been blinded by my youthful resentment. Yes, his feelings for her were probably not love, just a refusal to admit defeat. But whatever it was, it had destroyed us. He said he regretted it. So what if he regretted it? Would the hurt disappear? Would the countless nights of tears disappear? He asked me, Ava, can you forgive me? I looked at his hands, clenched so tightly the veins were white, his hair falling across his forehead, his eyes pleading, as if I were his last hope. My answer would determine his life or death. But, no. I looked at him and said, word for word, if I forgive everything, then everything in the past was my own fault. He instantly deflated. His straight back slightly stooped, as if all his strength had been drained. I turned and looked at the alley. It was much brighter now, paved with red bricks, neat and clean, no longer the dark, narrow, garbage-filled alley of the past. Just as I could no longer find a trace of the sharp, fierce boy who had leaned against the wall and looked up at me and him, and I would no longer cry for him. Unwittingly, we had both changed. This marriage, this love. Now, all that was left was a mess. A gust of wind blew past, carrying my voice away. I said softly, but I don't want to pursue it anymore. Whatever happened in the past, let it be. I want to live in the present. I don't want to be trapped by the past. I turned and left the alley. Looking up, the trees on both sides of the road had already sprouted green leaves. The streetlights were lit one by one, their light filtering through the leaves and dappling the ground. I walked quietly, on and on. A shadow blocked my path. I looked up and saw the Liam of my youth. His eyes sparkled with a fine light. He was wearing a white shirt, his collarbones as delicate as a butterfly's wings. He smiled, his voice very soft. Ava, will you marry me? I looked at him for a long time. Then, I shook my head. I heard myself say, I don't want to anymore. In all the days I was married to you, I was happy, and I was sad. I don't regret knowing you, but if I had another chance, I wouldn't want to marry you. Being with you is hard. I know that companionship is a huge gamble, and I know that in this gamble, I lost. So, I don't want to gamble anymore. Just then, a gust of wind blew past, and the Liam before me instantly dissipated. A drop of rain fell on my eyelid, like a tear. But I would never cry for him again. Never again. Just as the years of surging love had long since faded with time, and disappeared completely. After a spring rain, the chill of winter was washed away. I think the days of spring blossoms will come soon.